Throughout film history, a lot of great films have been made by really great pairings between fantastic directors and really incredible actors. When there's like a real simpatico relationship between a filmmaker and his lead performer, you end up with very powerful and, encapsulating films. You got like Scorsese and DeNiro, you got Herzog and Kinski. Now we have Fred Durst and John Travolta. That's right, this week we're going to be talking about the film The Fanatic.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Dunbar. Is Hunter Dunbar here tonight?
That's enough.
I need to get an autograph. Don't let him do this to me. I'm a fan. I'm a #1 fan.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Obviously this is not our usual setup. I'm not on my couch. I'm actually in a hotel in another city for work. It was like this kind of last minute work trip thing that came up, so I'm not at home, which is also why this video is getting to you a little bit late. So I apologize in advance for like the kind of thrown together nature of this. I kind of hit out of nowhere and kind of messed up my schedule a little bit. But we're still going to be here. We're still going to be talking about movies this week, and we're talking about a doozy of a movie. Before we talk about The Fanatic, I've got to talk a little bit about why I was excited to watch this movie, okay? I've talked about this in a couple other videos about how much I'm really enjoying late period John Travolta, where like John Travolta woke up one morning, maybe he was watching an old copy of Face Off and reminiscing about his glory days, and I think he realized that like if he really wanted to be, that maybe he could be a better Nick Cage than Nick Cage. And ever since, he's just been making, like, it's not fair to call them worse and worse movies, because the movies are all of varying quality that doesn't really have anything to do with him or his performance, but his work within those movies is so unchained. Travolta is just off the leash, doing whatever he wants, and it's pretty entertaining. Like, it's really hard to look away from. I mean, like, if you've seen Gotti, his performance in Gotti is godly. If you've seen The Poison Rose, which I was really into, not a fantastic film by any stretch of the imagination, his performance is pretty like ridiculous. He's just doing like whatever at this point, and I'm honestly loving it, man. Like at this point in his career, I don't know what like the good version of like a good Travolta performance would be like, or if I'd want to watch it. A few days ago, I rewatched the Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, the Tony Scott remake with Denzel. And, like, fine movie. It works pretty well. It's pretty impressive. I like a lot of late period Tony Scott stuff. But, like, Travolta is in it, and he's, like, hamming it up. And he's, like, he has a natural charisma that he's able to, like, mutate depending on the role. He does good as, like, this over-the-top villain. But it's, like, he's basically playing, like a shitty version of Dennis Hopper in Speed, So it's just not that, it's not that special to me. Like, good, normal, pretty strong John Travolta is just like, oh, okay, that's nice. But this new weird level he's unlocked where he's just in a whole nother galaxy, oh, I'm here for that. And then, he's now in a movie, The Fanatic, directed by Fred Durst. And some of you maybe didn't know that Fred Durst makes movies before this movie came out. This is actually Fred Durst's third feature. He's also directed like a commercial and like a short film and stuff that I think like Vice put out. But Fred Durst is like he's like a legit filmmaker, I guess. I mean, like he's made movies. You can't like deny that he also is a director now. I mean, I know everyone has like sort of the regular image of Fred Durst in their mind with the red cap, with the Nookie video and stuff. And me personally, my love and admiration for Limp Bizkit has been well documented. It is, I would say, only like 4% ironic. Most of my love for the band just stems from me being like 13 or whatever when they came out. So like, I'm not gonna ever be able to remove my opinions about their music from how I felt listening to them when I was 13. Like that's just, sorry, that's me for the rest of my fucking life now. So going into it, I was like super excited because I thought this could be like a really weird, fun movie. Who would want to watch it? But I'd never actually seen a Fred Durst movie before. I'd never watched his other films. I knew that he made them, but I was like, I'll do that later. So I thought this was a good opportunity. So I watched Fred Durst's two other films. The first being his directorial debut, The Education of Charlie Banks, which is sort of like late 70s, early 80s coming-of-age tale starring Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Ritter. And then The Long Shot starring Ice Cube and Keke Palmer, which is more of a straightforward Hallmark-style family drama about football. Two films that you would never assume were going to be directed by Fred Durst in your life. If you thought that guy was going to make a movie, surely this would not be it. either of these films, but they're both pretty good, honestly. They're not great. I'm not gonna like tell you to drop what you're doing right now and go out and watch a Fred Durst movie if you don't want to, but I watched The Long Shots first because it's on Netflix and it's easier to find, and The Long Shots is like really fun, really schmaltzy. I mean, really overly sentimental. But Ice Cube is fantastic in it. He has a really charming performance. Keke Palmer is his niece, who he teaches to be a quarterback, and then she ends up like changing this town by helping them win games and stuff. It's really fun. The whole cast is pretty good. The music is like really maudlin and over the top. The story structure, the writing is all like pretty obvious, but it works really well. It's a very sturdy movie. It's a throwback to like any other movie about football, basically, where like the sport and the team and the town like transcend like all sorts of strife and stuff. And it's really nice. It's like not a movie you would expect from Fred Durst. You know, it's like it's got a lot of heart, maybe too much heart, because it does feel just fake as shit at times. But there are moments of genuine sincerity, and it's like a really sweet flick. Definitely check it out. You know, it's on Netflix. Like I said, it's easy to acquire, and Ice Cube is pretty good in it. And then his other film, The Education of Charlie Banks, is like, it's basically like a real Project Greenlight ass movie. You know, like it's a screenplay that like maybe like reality show judges would be impressed by, and like the direction is all very. Durst as a director, it seems like very natural. Like he doesn't seem like he's like had like a lot of difficulty transitioning from music to film, and like partially because his movies are very obvious and straightforward, he's just kind of like going through the motions of like very simple storytelling. So it's not, you know, they're competent. They're not like glaringly awkward or anything like that. The Education of Charlie Banks kind of at times feels like an angry pseudo-intellectual like bro version of like the Virgin Suicides or something. Like the central story is just about Jesse Eisenberg is like this like bougie like kid in high school, and he ends up semi-befriending Jason Ritter's character, who's just like bad to the bone, like poor kid who's around a bunch of rich kids. He's always fighting people and stuff. And Charlie Banks almost gets that's Jesse Eisenberg's character. He almost gets this dude like arrested. He gets this dude arrested for nearly killing these two kids in a fight, like these two like preppy rich kids, and then he gets off because Jesse Eisenberg withdraws his like testimony or whatever. And then years later they're in college and this guy pops back up and stuff, and they become like these weird friends. It's like this weird friendship between like this like douchey like smart kid who thinks he's like special, and then this like poetic like bro warrior poet guy who like, you know, is like just real like pure and just a fucking. Jason Ritter's really good. I don't know, his performance in it is like very impressive. Although it's not as good as a lot of Jason Ritter's later work, which I think is very underrated. It basically is like Jason Ritter playing like Adam Cole, the current NXT champion, if he was like a high school bully. If that's something you ever want to see, like if like the performance is essentially like what if Marlon Brando had to play Adam Cole. Is the best way I can describe it. Like it's like a guy who thinks he's like everything he does is on some, you know, like rebel without a cause level iconography thing, but he's really just like a douchebag with long hair, like punching people and like being cocky about it. But there's some interesting stuff there. A lot of the like again, the music is all maudlin and over the top, and the story is like very over the top, and Sebastian Stan shows up in a couple of scenes. It's watching both of them like in such close proximity. I just remember thinking like, well, it's like Fred Durst is like a pretty regular filmmaker. I mean, he seems versatile. The two movies are almost nothing alike except for the fact that they're all like very obvious kinds of movies. I was like, you know, I could see him evolving over time, making more movies and eventually finding more of like his own real voice, because neither one of these films really feels like it has like a strong like authorial stamp. And then eventually he could become like, you know, maybe he could just transition into being Fred Durst the filmmaker. Most people wouldn't even remember that he was in Limp Bizkit. Highly unlikely, because like it's Limp Bizkit, but like it could happen. It's a distinct possibility. So I thought that's what's going to happen here in The Fanatic, right? The Fanatic is going to be this like big turning point maybe for him, because like, you know, it's a story about like a crazy stalker who's obsessed with this famous person. It's like based on a true thing that happened to him in his real life. And you got John fucking Travolta to play the stalker guy, and Travolta is like experienced. He's like just ready for takeoff, you know, like this is gonna be killer. And you know what else I thought was, even if it's like garbage, it's going to be really entertaining garbage. It's going to be really funny. It's going to be really like ridiculous, and like it's going to be fun to quote with your friends. It'll just be like a good sort of ironic garbage movie experience. Something that I am a big proponent of, obviously. It's kind of neither of those things. The Fanatic is both not a good movie, like by any metric that you could use to judge movies. Like, it's not a good film at all, but also it is not bad in a way that is particularly entertaining. It's weird. So the thing with The Fanatic is that the movie's about this guy Moose, played by John Travolta, and if you've seen pictures of him on the poster, he looks like, I don't know, like if Grimes needed like a tag team partner for the Mixed Match Challenge or something. Like, this is the guy she'd bring out to help her fight like Rusev and Lana. He just looks fucking weird. He looks like the lost member of the Antwoord. It's a lot of choices. The guy's made a lot of choices for this character. And Moose is just obsessed with like movie paraphernalia and cinema and like horror movies in particular. He wears like weird looking shirts and stuff, and he like loves buying like collectibles. It is heavily implied, based on the particular tics of John Travolta's performance, that Moose is somewhere on the spectrum, like that he's in some way autistic, but it's never actually like outlined or really wrestled with at all. Not that this is a movie that would have space for that necessarily, but it's a little bit uncomfortable that like that aspect of the character is just kind of brushed under the rug, and it's just like, what a fucking weirdo. He was just a fucking weirdie. It's a little uncomfortable. But Moose is obsessed specifically with this actor, Hunter Dunbar, played by Devon Sawa. That's right, guys. Fucking Devon Sawa's back in the mix. We haven't seen him in a little bit since, I don't know, like Final Destination. He's probably had stuff since Final Destination, the first one, but like I haven't seen him in a long time, except in memes derived from the video for Eminem Stan and in like Twitter. He's like funny on Twitter. But I'm glad he's in a movie again. Real underrated actor. Love that kid. Guy. He's an adult. He's a grown man now. And the movie mostly focuses on the relationship between crazy fan Moose and Hunter Dunbar, played by Devon Sawa, who's like going through a divorce. He's got like a young son. And he's like kind of has like a weird thing where he like wants to fuck his like maid. His life is like very complicated, or I don't know, Hollywood complicated, not like real life complicated. And Moose is like obsessed with meeting him, and like he breaks into like a party that he thinks is going to be at, and he's not there. He goes to a book signing to meet him, and he's the next person in line at the book signing. But then Hunter's ex-wife shows up because it's supposed to be his night with the kid, and she's a date, and like it kind of ruins the night, and he gets like, you know, kind of kicked off and doesn't get to have this moment with Hunter that he's been waiting for his entire life. And then he ends up getting into like this whole like star maps app type shit and figuring out where Hunter lives, and then they just develop a very antagonistic relationship that ends up crescendoing in a big burst of violence. Because if there's a movie called The Fanatic about a stalker and a celebrity, that's the structure of the movie. That's just, lots of movies have done this. DeNiro played this exact kind of part in The Fan with Wesley Snipes, which is like actually a pretty good movie. You know, like derivative but good. This is like a well-worn trope. This is like a type of movie that lots of people make, you know. The thing about these movies is that these movies were always like aiming to make some sort of commentary on celebrity culture and the nature of fandom and obsession and yada 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 yada, right? But almost none of these movies ever say anything about that, like for real, and they never actually make any interesting observations. This film is no different. The Fanatic is just kind of like there. It just jumps right in with Moose being like a weirdo and then Hunter being like kind of a dick. But the film doesn't really take sides with either. Like, you would think going into the movie that if this is loosely based on like something that really happened to Fred Durst, that he would make Moose like this horrifying creep of like with zero sympathy, and then like, you know, you would root for bad things to happen for him, or he would be trying to understand this experience that happened to him more by making Moose more sympathetic and someone you could empathize with, someone you could understand, and you could feel the pain he goes through along this journey, and then you would like have some kind of emotion any time in the movie. And it's like neither of those things. Like, the movie spends a lot of time with Moose, but you never get to understand him on a level where you would feel anything for him. And then Hunter is like kind of a dick and like kind of an asshole, but he's like understandably so given the situation. So there's no one really root for. It's just stuff kind of unfolds, and it all goes careening to this like inevitable conclusion, and the conclusion is like interesting, if only because Devon Sawa is like a really underrated actor, and his entire character in the movie is a guy who was an actor, not a great actor. He's an actor in horror movies and action films, and that he like has difficulty relating to people in real life because he's always kind of acting, which again is a little bit cliche for movies involving actors, like Hollywood inside baseball shit. But in certain scenes, you can see his character acting to try to get his way, and other characters calling him out on it, people that know him well enough. So later, when you're watching him use those same skills to try to like trick his captor, because at one point Moose ends up holding him hostage, you know, the power play and the back and forth, and like him trying to convince him and then giving up convincing him, and then going back to threats, then giving up threats and going back to trying to be his friend. Like, it's kind of fun to watch in the sense that what you're watching is John Travolta acting very strangely as this weird over-the-top part, and then Devon Sawa more subtly playing an actor, playing within the scene. So it's like you're watching this weird, like, dramatic exercise unfolding as the climax of the movie. It's not tethered to anything meaningful, and it doesn't, like, work with the rest of the story. But in the, like, it's self-contained. If you were just to watch the whole hostage scene, it's really fascinating, and there's some interesting stuff about it, and it's cool to see these actors working together. They have like a good chemistry. It's just that the whole movie is so mean-spirited and like shitty. You know, it's not, like I said, it's a competently shot film. Like, the scenes, you know, they read well and stuff. Again, the music is very maudlin and over the top. Like, every Durst movie has like garbage music, and there's, I mean, like, to the point that there's a scene where Devon Sawa, Hunter Dunbar, is driving with his son, and he's like, you want to hear some Limp Bizkit? And he plays Limp Bizkit, and it's not even like, it's like later period Limp Bizkit, like more newer music, and it's not very good, but like it's still better than the actual score. Like, he could have just scored the whole movie with Limp Bizkit songs, and it would have been an improvement. Anyway, it doesn't, the film does not allow us to ever like get close to Moose, and part of that is like the film's writing is not particularly stellar, and like the story itself isn't great, but I think a big chunk of that is like the decisions that Travolta makes in his performance as Moose. Like I said, I've been really entertained by the weird stuff that John Travolta's been doing lately, but the key thing about the way he acts now is that he's like an island unto himself, doing whatever he wants. He is making no effort to like line up with a film's themes or what a scene is about or things like that. He's just like, I don't know, like kind of like free associating. Like, he's just like making choices and making decisions and adding ticks and weird line readings and stuff. And like, by itself, there are very interesting elements of his performance. Like, I do think he's done a very good job of capturing like a very specific kind of awkward, you know, sort of social, like someone who can't read social cues, like, but is obsessed with popular culture. Like, he's captured an element of a certain specific subset of fandom that is always ripe for like parody. People love to make parodies of just like idiot weird fanboys and stuff, and like don't even treat them like humans. And I think that in some ways, by specifically recreating some of these ticks and line readings and things like that, the way he comes off in scenes feels incredibly authentic despite being obviously not authentic. What I mean by that is that within the scene, you'll be watching and you're kind of going like, I've met guys like this, like I've met people like this, and like I know that you know, the hyper focus on collectibles, memorabilia, and on movies and stuff like that. Like, some of the stuff really does read true to me and experiences I've had with people. And it can be kind of painful and a little bit awkward because, you know, like, you know that it's hard to relate, and they know it's hard to relate back to you and stuff. Like, it's awkward, it's cringe, it's all those things that you see in, like, kind of modern, unfunny comedy, I guess. But it's there. There's, like, this kernel of something that feels real, where you're kind of like, yeah, okay, that is kind of what it's like to interact with someone like this. And it is kind of painful that you want to be able to communicate better and you can't, and they're just trapped in this thing and whatever. But at the same time, you're watching the movie and you're looking at fucking John Travolta with like a funny haircut and like a Hawaiian shirt and shit. So like, you can't actually connect to the material in that way because you just look at him and you're like, he's just being so weird. You know, it completely like, you cannot not see John Travolta. Like, there, in some ways I thought, if you just got, like, some random unknown to play this part, and they delivered the same kind of performance, and you just didn't recognize their face, it would actually be pretty engrossing, and you might actually feel different things. It might be something that could transcend the script, and really kind of, like, enliven the film. But every time I look at his face, I just think of every other weird thing John Travolta's done, you know? And I'm mentally comparing some of these choices to choices he's made in Battlefield Earth, or Gotti, or any other thing he's done, you know? And you can't get to the movie. You cannot take the movie seriously, because the thing that jumps out at you the most about it is the, you know, blatant artifice of John Travolta's performance. He's not, strictly speaking, an actor whose strength has ever been, like, sincerity. You know, he's always kind of weird and fake looking, a little bit off, and all of his best performances have been in movies where, like, someone has been able to, like, shape his specific, like, vibrational energy into a very specific vessel, and it works. Like Pulp Fiction, like Get Shorty, like his early stuff, obviously, too, like even like Urban Cowboy. You know, like, you have to kind of, like, get him into, like, a narrow confines, and then within that he can do some real work. And as much as I like watching completely There Are No Walls, open world exploration John Travolta, there's a detriment to that style of acting, which is that you make everything around you seem less real because everything you're doing seems so fake. And like I said, there are moments, there are seeds of powerful, entrancing reality within his performance in The Fanatic, to me, mostly in the times where he's actually interacting with Devon Sawa, but the rest of the time, you're just like, this is just fucking uncomfortable to watch. The movie itself seems to have so little respect for him. The world seems to have so little respect for Moose that you never get a moment where you really sympathize with him. You're just like, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is awkward. He has, like, one friend, like this female character that they give, who's, like, a buddy of his who tries to help, kind of, but she's so poorly written and underdrawn, I don't even remember her name in the movie, and I literally just watched it. You know, that she may as well be like an imaginary friend. Like, there's no one he has any kind of connection with at all. There are, like, again, like I said, some things with some other characters, side characters, who are interesting and, like, for a moment, but they're not around long enough to really, like, to feel anything with them and him. He's just this, like, freestanding oddball, and it kind of sucks. So, like, if The Fanatic is, like, about nothing, and it says nothing, and it goes nowhere, should you watch it? I mean, if you are morbidly curious, I do think you should. It's only 85 minutes, so in terms of movies that are going to waste your time, it's going to waste a smaller fraction of your time than some other bad movies this year. I do think that watching John Travolta is a fascinating experience, and if you've liked his other weird bad performances, you should see this one if you're, like, a completist. But mostly, the person I would say to watch the movie for is really Devon Sawa. I really hope, I mean, this is not going to happen, but I would hope that this would lead to him getting better roles, or more roles. Maybe he's making movies and I just haven't seen them, but, like, he's really good. He's very good, despite this not being a good movie. And, like, maybe, I don't know, there's still hope for Fred Durst. I mean, he's continuing to make music with Limp Bizkit even to this day, which is weird, quite frankly, but hey, you gotta make money. And, you know, I would like to see more films from him. I would like to see him make something that's, like, really him, you know? Because even this movie, again, is still authorally, like, bare. There's just not enough there for me to go, this is a Fred Durst film, you know? And, like, I kind of want to see a little more character. Like, that short film he had where he plays, like a crazy evangelist who's, like, hitting people with chairs and stuff. Like, that seemed a little bit more like its own thing. I'd like to see that in feature form and not just whatever weirdness he keeps doing here. It's pretty confounding. But it is on VOD, and if you want to see what this weird-ass movie is all about, more power to you. Check it out. Check out The Fanatic. And if not, you can always watch, like, a good John Travolta movie, or you can just watch the Brick Stuff video. That's probably better. Actually, I take it back. Just watch the video to Brick Stuff. What a masterpiece. Okay, so thank you guys again for watching. Next week, I think I'll be back home, so it'll be a slightly more normal video, but I might still be here, so I guess get used to seeing my hotel rooms. Like, why do all hotel rooms have, like, such fucking shitty art? Just, like, put up, like, a Rob Liefeld poster or something fucking cool, you know? I don't know. Thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone's having a good week. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. If you have subscribed, please hit the little bell icon to get notified when I put out new videos. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate it, give it a thumbs down. And, if you like this channel at all, if you've been liking these videos, please tell your friends, share them or something. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully we're like 170 away. Like, we could get 170 people to watch these videos. If I have to get naked, maybe, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I hope you guys liked it. Have a great weekend. Bye.